All right, morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. I'm on. Yep.
Reminder.
You're not. Welcome to the May board meeting. We have a quorum. We miss 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Everyone's here. Yeah, that's right, because we have not sworn in the next one. Okay. So we have a quorum. The first thing we have is an awards presentation, I believe.
Yes. So,
Oh, okay.
Tara, would you like to join us?
Good morning. How's everyone doing?
Good, thank you.
Today, I want to take a few minutes to acknowledge and celebrate the commitment to the safety and health of all employees. The North Carolina Department of Labor has recognized Sweeney Water Treatment Plant and Northside Wastewater Treatment Plant as 10-year SHARP, which is Safety and Health Achievement Recognition Program participants. Both plants obtained their SHARP recognition in 2014 and have successfully maintained it since. Note, our other departments got their SHARP recognition in 2016, so in 2 years we'll be back to recognize them. And to accept the award from Sweeney, if you would like to come up, I have Jack Walsh, water operator, Jeremy Sneed, utility maintenance mechanic, and then to accept the award from Northside, I've got Tristan Rickabaugh, wastewater operations supervisor, Christian Mathis, senior wastewater treatment control operator, Lauren Friedley, wastewater operator, Jonathan Wise, utility maintenance mechanic.
So while they're coming up, I want to take a note of personal privilege. The SHARP Awards are a distinction in our industry. It's common in industrial settings for folks to pursue and be recognized, but in the water utility industry, it's rare for a water utility to work hard to connect with a Department of Labor and establish this award. And this organization has a long track record. It's part of our values, the values that you helped us establish. So my personal appreciation to the team that keeps us safe every day.
Yes, thank you, Ken. And just a little bit more information about SHARP, as Kenny said. SHARP is a nationally recognized program offered to employers who can demonstrate outstanding safety programs. The North Carolina program is one of the largest in the country. To qualify, an employer must have a strong safety program and have an injury and illness rate below the national average for that industry. With this status, we provide protection from safety and health hazards, create a better working environment, boost worker morale, improve communication, become a leader in our industry, and save money with lower insurance premiums, worker retention, and reduced days away from work. And since I have your attention, I just want to brag about the NCDOL Safety Awards for those with incidence rate at least 50% below the average for our industry group. Since 2010, different departments across CFPUA have received over 200 of these awards, with 77 being silver awards based on our days away from work, and 124 gold awards based on our DART rate, which is days away from work, restricted or transferred duty. So thank you, and I just like to say that safety begins with teamwork. So thank you, guys.
Thank you all. And as a safety and health professional, I so appreciate the award. And I kind of feel like safety is what you do when nobody's looking. And you know, are you wearing your safety glasses when nobody's around, things like that. But I so appreciate the dedication, the service. This allows, you know, every single one of our employees to go home, be with their families, be safe. And so we thank you for that commitment. All right, hang on. I know, okay. So we need a motion to adopt the agenda. Motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And Dr. Cannon, the minutes?
We have the minutes from our last regular meeting in April in the packet, and if there are no questions or discussion, I will take a motion to approve the minutes, or the chair will.
Motion.
Motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any public comments? Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we're going to open up the public hearing for the fiscal year 26 budget presentation. Mr. McLean.
Good morning, and we can do it however we want. I guess we could go ahead and open the public hearing now, or we could do the presentation and then open the public hearing, so either way is fine. Okay. So before I begin, I did just want to say a special thank you to you as the board, and most especially to staff for all the hard work. This is the culmination of a months-long process in crafting a budget, and you know, especially working through some of the challenges that we've been working through this year. I also want to note that the numbers that you're about to see are the exact same numbers that were presented last month, with two exceptions. One exception is we reached out to some of you, got some feedback from the development community as far as the changes to the development services fees. So there's a little bit of a tweak there. We'll get into that. That was also presented to long-range planning this past month. And then we also got the final numbers for our 2025 revenue bonds. So we locked in hard numbers on the principal and interest related to that issue. So those are the only changes. So how this presentation is laid out, I'm going to start with showing you the numbers, right? I'm going to show you the appropriations for FY26. I'm going to show you the estimated revenues for FY26 and how those compare to the adopted budget for FY25, just to kind of anchor ourselves in those numbers. Then I want to get into some of the detail about the main drivers, so some of the main things that were driving some of our decision making around developing this year's budget. And then I want to tie them together. I want to tie those drivers back to how they manifest in terms of the numbers included in the budget recommendation that we're about to go through. Maybe. Okay. So here we go. The FY26 budget, recommended budget is $129,353,416. That is about a $9.4 million increase from the adopted budget in FY25, about a 7.8% increase. And you can kind of see some of the movers here between categories, and we'll go into more detail about that. We'll also go into detail about these changes amongst these different revenue lines as well, these different revenue categories. So at the highest level this year, the FY26 budget was really designed around answering this question. So it's how can we continue to proactively manage the future rate impacts of Southside, right, with that project going from an estimated $250 million to $400 million, while continuing to deliver the same level of service to not only our existing customers, but also to the town of Wrightsville Beach under this consolidation, and at the same time trying to minimize rate impacts this year. So that was kind of, in a nutshell, the big drivers, and here they are, right? So we have maintaining service levels, big driver, the updated cost estimate for Southside, and then, of course, the impacts from the town of Wrightsville Beach consolidation. So as you all know, and as I mentioned, the estimated cost for Southside went from $250 million to $400 million. So this resets that trajectory in terms of this smooth path that we're trying to achieve to kind of climb this wall, right? This rock wall. And we want to do that gradually, building a ramp, not trying to climb it all in 1 year. So taking some proactive steps, right, to try to climb that ramp. In terms of maintaining our current service levels, that really comes down to being competitive in the workforce, right? Attracting and retaining a good, solid workforce. Obviously supporting our system operations, and that also means maintaining our capital infrastructure. And so what I do want to note there is that the cost that's included in this budget to support those activities are actually less than what we projected at the same time last year for this year. And we've been the beneficiaries of a couple of things. That's kind of a more normalized labor market, and some cooling of inflationary trends. And then obviously some good work that the Long Range Planning Committee and Finance and this board has done in terms of looking at trying to optimize our capital program with choosing to defer some projects. So and finally, we got the consolidation with Wrightsville Beach. Wrightsville Beach is going from wholesale to retail. Yes, there are some additional personnel and some operating costs that are associated with that consolidation, but that consolidation has a net positive budgetary impact. So what that means is the new retail revenues coming from the town of Wrightsville Beach are greater than the loss of the wholesale revenues from Wrightsville Beach, and then also those additional personnel and operating costs that are now coming on to the budget, okay? And what that means is rates are actually incrementally lower than they would have been absent the consolidation. So I think that's a really important point and a really good story there. So despite the positive impact of the consolidation and those lower than projected operating costs, we're still seeing upward pressure on rates from that cost increase for Southside, right? And then the other thing as well is we've lowered our estimated system development charge revenues to reflect the recent trends that we've been seeing in terms of new growth over the past couple of years, right? So those are kind of two additional factors that put pressure on retail rates. So to reduce that pressure, we've done some work, right? We've come up with some additional revenue sources that will take that pressure off. One of those is that special irrigation rate, right, that we talked about. The next is that printed bill fee. So looking at putting $1 per bill for printed bills starting that January 1 of 2026. And then obviously the changes to the development services fees, moving to a price or a cost per linear foot for reviews and inspections. Kind of where we've been is a cost recovery of about 12%. Those fees have been recovering around 12% of the cost to deliver those services to the development community. That 88% has been absorbed into retail rates. So we're moving those fees up gradually, and I think this year we're looking at about a 44% cost recovery there. So with all of that said, we're looking at an increase in retail water and sewer rates, and how that manifests in terms of an average customer is an additional $5.12 per month. A cup of coffee, maybe two. So I'm going to tie together those drivers with the actual amounts, okay? So we're looking at salaries and benefits. A 1.9, almost a $2 million increase, about a 5.6% increase this year compared to last year. So what's driving that, right? It's really mostly this maintaining current service levels, right? So we have a 3.5% combined merit and market. We have one new position and one reclassification included, And then we're also actually looking at a budget reduction from closing the lobby downtown. It's about a $75,000 recurring annual savings. On top of that, we have some additional personnel costs related to the 7 positions that are transferring over from Wrightsville Beach as part of the consolidation. And that estimated cost is around $583,000. So that's how that increase breaks down. In terms of the operating, about a $1.3, $1.4 million increase, and that's mostly driven by some estimated costs, and these are all guesses. We'll obviously continue to refine those needs as we actually take over and operate the Wrightsville Beach system. But estimating, kind of jumping down to that second bullet, around $736,000 in additional operating costs related to operating that service area. The smaller portion is maintaining our current levels of service for our existing service area. It's about a $608,000 increase, which is pretty good. If not for the Wrightsville Beach consolidation, that percentage increase would be much lower, maybe around 2%, right? We are kind of getting a little bit of a benefit, right? We've reduced our PFAS-related legal costs in 26 compared to 25. That litigation process has kind of slowed down now that discovery is over. And then kind of the other big highlight is we have an additional GAC exchange programmed in. We kind of oscillate every other year between 10 and 11 changeouts. This is an 11 changeout year. So that's how that breaks down. And then finally, in terms of our debt service and our transfer, so our two last appropriation lines, right? So we have our debt service figure. It's increasing by 12%, so that does include the debt service on the Series 2025 revenue bonds. We also have our normal capital transfer, so our pay-go transfer from our operating fund to our capital fund. And those two things are really about maintaining current service levels, right? So making sure that our rehab and replacement of infrastructure is funded, right? So either on a debt basis or on a pay-as-you-go basis. The other transfer lines break down. We have about a $5 million appropriation that's part of this $26 million total here. That's for Southside. So we're taking revenues in FY26 and putting it over into the capital reserve. This is the smoothing mechanism that we use to build that ramp to get to that debt service peak when the full effect of the debt service on Southside kicks in 2031. And then finally, we have a little piece here. It's just under $1 million. I think it's about $963,000. And what that is, if you'll remember, as part of the structure of the consolidation, until the Wrightsville Beach projects are paid off, we're operating the systems as two separate systems. So all customers, so customers from both systems are sharing in 100% of O&M. So salaries and benefits and operating costs. So those first two lines up there. They're not sharing in all of the debt service and the transfers. They're only sharing in, or both service areas are sharing in the debt service and the transfers related to what we've deemed core capital projects. So those are improvements to plants. Those are improvements to mains, right? That benefits the entire service area. And then the portion that is non-core, so those are projects that benefit only customers in the existing service area, right? That piece. They are not sharing in those costs. However, they are paying the same retail rates as all of our customers. So there's this little bit of a delta that's left over that will be used to fund the projects that only benefit Wrightsville Beach. Okay, and that's what this represents. It's about $963,000 this year. It will go up in subsequent years. We are budgeting for or projecting for the consolidation to go live 9/30. So only 3/4 of the year or a quarter of a way through the year.
I'm sorry, John, can you walk us one more time? Tell me where that delta comes from.
Sure, okay, so you are paying the same, so you're a Wrightsville Beach customer.
What was the question?
That delta he's talking about that we transferred, so I want to make sure we're understanding that the two accounts are being kept separate. That the two accounts are being kept separate.
Right, so you're a Wrightsville Beach customer, okay? And, during the period where those projects have not yet been paid for, okay? There's a portion of the rates that you're paying that are going to go to projects that only benefit you as a Wrightsville Beach customer. That's the same portion that I'm paying as an existing CFPUA customer that is going to fund projects that only benefit me as an existing CFPUA customer.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Ken, you want to add something?
No, I mean, it's an idea that you can take the $75 bill we all receive and you can divide it between operating and capital. And then you take that capital and divide it again between core capital and non-core capital. Non-core capital is a project, for example, that for you and I, it might be a project in Monterey Heights or up at Porter's Neck that benefits those areas and we pay for it. Wrightsville Beach customers will not be contributing to those projects. But likewise, there's a series of projects inside of Wrightsville Beach that part of the bill will be paying for. And none of our customers on the mainland will be funding. So we separate it in an accounting measure until all of the costs on the islands are paid for.
And is that easily identifiable in our packet every month? Or do you think it would be wise to make sure, because I think it's really important that our ratepayers understand that there is a paywall and that they are not saddling the bill for Wrightsville Beach to come up to snuff. I think it's really, as these real costs start to accrue, I would love to be able to just point to it right there and say, see, no, you're not.
So in terms of the costs, we have that in the packet currently. So we have what was budgeted, we have what's been spent. We also have a little schedule that shows the revenues or the inflows that will fund those. So which there's three funding sources, right? There's the grants that we got. So there's the 25 million. There's also a transfer of the cash from their water and sewer enterprise fund. And then to the extent that those two things don't cover the total cost of these Wrightsville Beach specific projects, that's where that rate differential comes in.
And we pass it along to them.
Right.
But to answer your question, we can change the monthly financial reporting sheets to try to explicitly show revenues and expenditures. They probably are already there. We'll look for ways to highlight them so you can point right toward it in the monthly reports.
I think that would be great.
Yeah, and I have that non-core kind of rate in my model, kind of forecasted out, but we won't get an actual true rate until the end of the year once we know what projects
What you spent.
we spent on.
Yep.
So it will change, but we can certainly show that kind of forecasted amount. So that's a good distinction there. The 963 that's budgeted is just a guess. It's I think it's a very educated guess, but it's just a guess because we don't know exactly how projects are going to spend this year.
Yep.
But obviously, we're following it, so we'll look for a way to reflect that back into the reports you see.
That would be helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay, so changing gears a little bit, this is the revenue side, okay? And as we mentioned, for the SDCs, we're dropping the revenue forecast by about $3.2 million. Now, there's no change in the rates. This is totally a function of the volume of new growth that is being assessed the SDC. And what I'm hoping, this is what I told the finance committee, is I'm hoping, since I've missed the past 2 years, to the bad, I'm hoping this year, once we drop it, it's gonna tick back up. But so, fingers crossed there. And then the other thing is this other charge for services. That's mainly driven by the wholesale water and sewer revenues that we got from, or that we were historically getting from Wrightsville Beach. We're no longer getting. So those revenues are now up in those two retail lines, the fixed charge and the volumetric retail charges. And then obviously, if these things decrease, in order to balance everything out, the retail water and sewer charges have to go up, right? And you can see how that manifests in terms of total revenues. To get an idea in terms of the actual rates, right? This breaks it down by component. So looking at the fixed charge for water and sewer, the volumetric charges for water and sewer, we have our new special irrigation rate in there as well. Last year or currently, that rate is the same. It's the same volume rate, no matter if it's a separately metered irrigation or it's your just normal domestic water service. Now those rates are different, and you can see that breakdown here.
John,
Yes.
do we have an estimate on the increased revenue that'll be brought in from the new irrigation rate?
I had that number and I looked at it. I think it's about $1.8 million. I think it's about $1.8 million. But yeah, I can follow up with you.
John, on the same thought as Luke, are we assuming the same amount of usage of the irrigation that we currently have after we increase the rate, the amount that they're paying for it? I'm just imagining, it looks like to me, on the simple math, about a 59% increase if I'm using my irrigation meter. I think that some people will say, I'm not gonna use the irrigation meter. Either that or they'll go and drop a well in. So are we making the assumption that it's just gonna be a straight one-for-one, shift? Or are we dropping the amount of usage?
That is a very valid question. So what you're referring to is the price elasticity of water demand, or in this case, irrigation, right? Right?
Yeah, I like those words.
Yeah, right. So right. So if the price goes up, we would expect some change in behavior, some decrease in demand behavior.
So before John tells you what he baked into the model, I can
right.
tell you what our research suggested. Our research suggested, based off of looking at past water restrictions because of our inability to provide the supply,
Right.
that we didn't see significant elasticity changes. Doesn't mean we won't. The research suggested that we didn't. And when looking at our customer classes that utilize irrigation, it seems likely that those are the folks that are also most able to absorb the cost increase. It's in line with the theory of a tiered rate structure in some ways. But in this case, there will be some individuals that will decide it's a better long-term investment to sink a well and utilize it. But putting in a well is not cheap either.
Right.
So John, did you bake any elasticity into your model?
I did not. So it's kind of tough. There's a bunch of offsetting factors, like Ken mentioned. What the research suggests is that the elasticity for discretionary use is higher than non-discretionary use, and that makes sense. The research also suggests that elasticities are lower for higher income people, right? Because that price delta doesn't affect you as much.
Right.
So, and what we do know, we don't have individual customer income data, but what we do know is where our separately metered irrigation services are, those tend to be in higher income census tracts. So there's a bunch of offsetting factors here, and so it's very tough to predict, but that is certainly something that we will be monitoring as the year goes on.
I will say that this particular change is one that is probably the highest on my radar.
Great.
So there are some partners that we wanted to notify ahead of time. The county, the city, the schools, the university. We are working on a plan, and also the Novant Health, thank you. We're working on a plan to notify property managers and HOAs, all of which have to kind of establish their budgets now. So we're prepared for this number to be right or wrong. When you do a change like this, sometimes you just have to go with the best data you have. And if we miss it and there's some elasticity here, we're going to have to come back in the middle of the year and talk about it, and talk about how we're going to adjust. Our best professional judgment is at only a 50% increase. And I know that sounds strange to say, but a lot of our neighbors are 2 times or even 3 times the cost in terms of irrigation. So at doing it 1.5, that we're probably not bumping up against the bottom end of the elasticity for this class of customer.
July 1.
Yeah, right away.
You gotta hurry, put that well in.
Yeah. that's- Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, just to wrap up this slide, just to kind of go over an impact to an average customer. So in terms of an average residential customer that has water and sewer service only, so domestic water and sewer, here's that $5.12 per month that we were talking about. Looking at an average residential customer that has all 3 services, right? So domestic water, sewer, and then also separately metered irrigation, and looking at how those customers behave on average, what you're looking at is per month about $16.90 more. Now, that's going to be maybe higher during the summer months, lower during the winter months, but on average, kind of smoothed out, it's about $17 more per month. With that, I'll entertain any more questions.
That $17 a month, is that inclusive of all the increases or just the irrigation?
All the
Okay,
increases.
thought so.
So thinking back to the revenue number or the expenditure number, we had a 7.8% increase in expenditures. Simple math suggests that's what we would need to do in terms of revenue. What we're suggesting is we distribute that increase among the classes. We're putting more of an increase on irrigation, because that's discretionary use. And that allows us as staff to recommend less of an increase on standard domestic utilization, water and sewer.
Any other questions for John and the finance team on the proposed budget? All right, if not, we'll move into the adoption of the budget ordinance.
Public hearing.
I'm sorry, we need a motion to close the public hearing. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, now we will take a motion to approve the adoption of the fiscal year 26 budget ordinances as presented.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, budget passes. Thank you all. Thank you to the finance team. I know we put a lot of work and iterations into that, so we appreciate it, and thank you to the ratepayers that are supporting us for this. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. We've got 4 items on the consent agenda. Any comments, questions? Do we need to pull any for discussion? All right, if not, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving into administrative reports, the attorney's report.
No report, but I do have 2 items for closed session.
Executive director's report.
Yes, and good morning. We have our standard 5 reports: the key indicators report, the safety report, the environmental report, your strategic plan update, and our economic development projects update. Are there any questions for those reports?
Go ahead, Commissioner Zhang.
Just 2 quick comments. on the key indicators, the first one being on page 94, days cash on hand. I noticed that we had a significant jump, which says to me some excellent management of money. Nice job.
Lucky and we finally got a.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that was good management of money. Thank you, John.
That's an alley-oop.
Take the wins when you can get them, because they'll be on the other side one day, too. So, and.
Wait to hear a second comment.
Yeah, that's right. No, still positive. I'm in a good mood today, Dane. Yeah. Second one's on page 101, under the growth. That's the number of meters. We now have 5 months of positive growth. I think that's really sharp, considering how much volatility is out there. So, doing a great job. So, thank you. Those are my 2 comments. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks. All right, anything else, Executive Director?
Nothing
Okay.
else.
All right, moving into the committee reports. The Executive Committee met on May 7th. We have one action item. We need to establish a nominating committee for next year's officers. Wes has volunteered to be on that committee. I'll be on that committee as well. I need a county representative as well as a city representative to serve on that committee. And we would meet after the June 16th. We would meet after our June board meeting, but before July 1st, if possible.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to continue serving on that committee unless Councilman Rivenbark wants it.
Okay. You want to arm wrestle?
Happy to stay on, if you're all right with that, Dane?
I'm not going to fight you over it, Rob.
Okay.
We never fight.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. We have our nominating committee established. Moving on to Long-Range Planning Committee. Mr. Hackney.
Raw water line, a redoing raw water pipe leak. We have Rice Beach consolidation update, and then we discuss, factoring in escalation to our capital planning in the future.
Madam
Yeah, go
Chair,
ahead.
can I just make a quick comment on that, on the, for those of you that have or have not been tracking it, item number 2 is the update on the 54-inch diameter steel raw water main project. Garney is the name of the company that's doing it, and they are providing what I think, in my time as a commissioner and serving on this committee, is the most comprehensive and the most understandable updates. I would really recommend kind of diving in and taking a look at it. You know, they have photographs, so you don't even have to read much. You can see what they're doing. I know that sounds silly, but these huge projects sometimes become abstract, and they really show you what goes into it and the progress that's been happening. The truth is, for our area, this is a generational project. Adding that 54-inch will give us redundancy for the first time in our history. So I'd just recommend kind of cruising through and taking a look at it, and also say a thank you to Garney, the company.
Probably the most important thing we've done short of Southside Tribute.
That's correct.
If I make a personal comment, there's some folks around the table that deserve a lot of credit, especially our representatives to the Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer Authority, who worked with our local delegation to bring $53.5 million in special appropriations to that project. That truly is a generational project, and 80% of it is paid for
do.
by special appropriations. Credit goes to our delegation to Lower Cape Fear for making that happen.
Here, here.
I think that was all I had.
That's it?
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, moving on to Finance Committee.
Yeah, Finance
Mr. Wood.
Committee met on May 7th, minutes are in the packet. That will have our monthly financials.
Yeah, who cares?
Just very, very quickly. I just wanted to show you the financial position. So this is kind of, you know, all of our total fund balance, right? And then how it breaks down by the different categories. So you can see that as of the end of March, our unassigned fund balance, that's the green, is at about $47.1 million. So we're on the right track. This kind of uptick right here, that represents a transfer from Wrightsville Beach It's kind of a first installment payment on the $13 million in capacity charges, SDCs, related to the consolidation. So that's what's bumped that up. And I think in terms of retail rates, I think that we're right on track, and we can kind of go to that there. I mean, this is great, right? This is looking at where we actually are in terms of total retail revenues. This is through the end of April, and where we expect it to be in terms of the budget. We seasonally adjust this. We don't just spread the revenue out 1/12 per month. It's actually seasonally adjusted, and we are right there. So that's a really positive thing. So I'll kind of stick by my bold prediction last month that we will have a surplus in terms of that $50 million number by the end of this year. And I'll remind you, we want to kind of take a look again at at that fund balance target, right? That number is not explicitly in policy. What the policy says is that periodically we look at a risk-based sufficient unassigned fund balance number. It's a bunch of considerations, right? What looks good to the credit rating agencies, what is suitable for our risks operating in our environment, right? And so, but I'm going to be recommending that we bump that up to something higher. All of that work, of course, will be done through the Finance Committee, and looking forward to having those discussions. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. Any questions on the finance update?
Again, a note of personal privilege. There was a bunch of different ways that our negotiating team could negotiate the consolidation. This board gave that team some parameters, and they looked for the win-win, and one of the win-wins was this $13.2 million buy-in that was necessary for them to be part of our system, but it also allows us to rebalance that uncommitted fund balance.
Ms. Hudson, you had a question? Did you have a question? Oh, okay, sorry.
Thanks, John.
Okay, and with that, we have, I'm sorry, go ahead, Wes, still yours.
Oh, yeah, so we have one item to bring before the board, which is $11,423,000 contract with Crowder Construction Company for Southside, the early site work package. And we wanted to bring
And
it
Craig Wilson will
Yep.
be,
to review and a vote.
Good morning. I can go through the actual agenda item, or I can just field questions. Which would you prefer?
Yeah, this is field questions.
Okay.
Got one question. It's on page 207 of the package. That's for those of you that had more to do than I did and didn't read everything in such detail. I go down further, and it says, other than the assumptions for the contract, it says, we assume that subsurface conditions at the site as identified in the subsurface investigation issued on September 25th, 2025.
That's a typo. It should be 2024.
Thank you.
Yes. But they did do geotechnical reports throughout.
You're welcome.
Boom. You know,
Thanks, Bill.
I did.
Was that your only question?
Wow.
That's
I did
the only
actually
question.
read the
Okay.
section
well,
too.
we will need
Yeah.
to ensure to move for approval with that correction.
Yeah.
Move with that correction noted.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay, moving on to Sustainability Committee. Okay. Human Resource Committee, we did not meet this past month, but we have a meeting scheduled this before the next board meeting, so we'll report out after that. Any old business to become before the board? All right. And with that, I will take a motion to go into closed session.
Yeah, motion to go into closed session to discuss contract negotiations and potential litigation.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, got lots of motions and seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We'll start at 10 o'clock.
And Mackenzie, Brittany, and Kevin